Well, the first time I saw the roof after Hurricane Irma was the very next day. The storm was September the 10th, 2017. It was a Sunday. So it was pretty devastating to see it. It looked like a sardine can had been peeled back. All of this roofing material was on the ground, peeled back. You could see it to the plywood. And so it was like, wow, this is going to be a lot. And then walking around the building, there were different amounts of damage in different places on the outside. And then seeing the garden just piled up with debris everywhere. So it's like, this is going to be a lot of work, and we're going to have to vacate the building. So that started the plans in place. So it was that week, it's like, okay, we need to get pods, we need to get storage, we need to get this building emptied. But because of the dampness inside, and I had our safety people come out, and they actually did mold testing, and it's like we had to limit any exposure to a couple hours a day.
So even though University of Florida IFAS Extension faculty and staff aren't considered first responders, many across the state of our faculty and staff work very closely with their county emergency management department. This includes working in the emergency operations centers and the EOCs, but also helping with community preparedness and recovery afterwards, which means that University of Florida and IFAS is involved in all levels of disaster, including preparation, mitigation, and recovery as well. And this is not only our faculty and staff, but also our volunteers, our master gardeners, our 4-H volunteers, all part of the IFAS family that really steps up to help out when these disasters are coming, and then after the disasters as well.
We've got about 7 micro gardens and the alternative fruit tree orchard, and the irrigation went down, and the master gardeners were our heroes. Without even begging, they set some temporary irrigation systems up and saved probably 90% of our plant life here just on their own initiative over a 18-month period.
They were able to take the garden and get it back into shape, and it's been a process. It's been over 18 months, and they all had their own issues. I mean, people had their roofs were destroyed, their yards were destroyed, their property had trees down all over. And we had those folks who came out and helped clear this property, and they really saved the garden.
So communication before, during, and after a disaster is extremely important, and a lot of times that communication can be a very big barrier, both internally and externally. And especially in a case like a natural disaster such as Irma, where all cell service and all internet was down. So that form of communication that we've all become very accustomed to with using our phones, we were not able to communicate, which means that if in Gainesville we were not able to communicate with the folks down in Collier County, and it became a very big barrier of understanding what they were dealing with, but also how best that we could communicate with them and how best we could help with them.
Something that was really helpful when we could start to get cell signal was hearing from people like our DED and the dean, and it's kind of like, yeah, we know what's going on, and when we're finally able to get out pictures to them, and people didn't they just didn't realize it. It's like, if it doesn't happen in your area, it's hard to get kind of the magnitude.
There were a lot of changes to their program in the past year. For example, 4-H could not meet. They didn't have facilities to be able to meet, and so they had to come up with alternate locations and to be able to just function.
After Irma hit, we had our meetings at Matt's house, and now we have them at the extension office, and I'm really happy that they have them here now.
One of our biggest challenges was to find locations to do programs. Our county partners stepped in, our other public service divisions, so the museum, the library, and Parks and Rec gave us space to do programs, and even office space for a plant clinic at the main museum. So they were super helpful. Another thing that was a challenge was people were so used to coming to this building where we had the big multi-purpose room, a classroom, a conference room, was getting people to go to the right spot. Anyway, we overcame those things, and the good news is we really didn't lose numbers as far as participants in our program.
The whole team just really addressed the immediate things that they needed to. They shifted their program focus to recovery kinds of programming. From the state level and from the district level, we were able to get printed materials down here in Spanish and in English to help people in their personal recovery efforts.
Disasters can be some of our biggest teachers a lot of times. And one of the big things that we can take from lessons learned from Irma is that recovery takes a very long time, and working in collaboration with our community and others within the community is a great way to make sure that the community recovers, but also we as University of Florida and IFAS recovers as well. And one of the great things about the Collier County story is that here we are today at their actual open house, where it's the ability to show this is what the office looked like and here's where we are today. This is what recovery is still looking like for us. It's a way that we can come in and thank our partners before and during and after the storm, and also for others that we may have helped can come in and thank us as well. But it's also a way to make sure the community knows that University of Florida and IFAS is here within Collier County, and that we offer programs throughout the year, not just for preparation and mitigation and recovery of disasters, but also programs throughout the year in many, many different areas. So it's a great way to continue those partners and thank everyone for their help in the recovery efforts post Hurricane Irma.
The key things that I've learned is that you want to know where people are. If they're going to evacuate, leave from their homes, go into a shelter, you want to know where they are. And a lot of our folks are part of the county's emergency action team, and so a lot of them do spend storms in shelters and providing services in the local community. And so what we want to be able to do is to as much as we can, be ready to help them with their personal things that they have to do.
Well, we call it Semper Gumby. Always be flexible. So you'll find new ways to meet with your people. In fact, it might cause you to do less email and more one-on-one. So that's what Extension is about, is meeting people in the field and where they're facing their issues.
Well, going forward, what have we learned? What have we gained? Well, somewhat having a plan and knowing that plans change. So you might plan on a certain type of disaster, but it may be very different than the last one. So having that flexibility to move forward and say, we've gotten through this before, we can do it again. It is so wonderful to be back in our home. And it's also kind of neat because there's still some challenges and some opportunities. So helping us think about things in a different way and trying not to get stuck in, well, it wasn't that way before, or change, because it's inevitable. Things are going to change, and things are changing for the better. So to sum it up, I'm very, very grateful to be back in the UF IFAS Extension building in Collier County.